Welcome back, learners. In earlier session, we were discussing about conflict and what kinds of conflict takes place in an organization. What are the different types of conflicts which occur in an organization, and what are the process of conflicts which take place in an organization, and also the sources of conflict in an organization. Now, we will go to the second concept which happens in organization. We discussed about different types of conflict, different forms of conflict, what are the sources of conflict. Now, let us look at the stress. What is stress and why does it happen? In traditional organization, there was nobody who was dealing with the stress aspect of the employees. With the experiment of Hawthorne, it was established that human relations play an important role in organization. When there are good relationship between the employees, among the employees, between the management and the staff, there emerges an amicable environment in the organization, and that gives rise to motivation, and your emotions are positive and you would like to complete whatever is given to you and deal with the things in a positive manner. So, what is stress? In psychology, stress refers to some stimulus resulting in a detectable strain that cannot be accommodated by the organization or by the organism, and which ultimately results in impaired health or behavior. So, why does stress takes place? Because there is a stimulus, you react to that stimulus. If you react to that stimulus in a positive manner, that will not affect your organism. But the stimulus which gives rise to some kind of strain within you, it affects you, it hurts you, then the organism gets disturbed, and that will ultimately result in deteriorating your health or deteriorating your behavior. So, the term stress has been approached in at least 4 different ways. One is as a stimulus or external force acting on the organism. The external force or the stimulus is affecting you. That is the first stage. The second stage is as the response or changes in physiological functions. When the stimulus affects you personally, professionally, then it results in different physiological function which may affect your health, which may affect your behavior. Thirdly, as an interaction between an external force and the resistance opposed to it, as in biology. Something is piercing you, some nail is piercing in your hand, you want to remove it. When you remove it, you feel relieved. But if the nail is going inside and affecting your body, it is hurting you. When it hurts you, it affects your physiological function, and with physiological functions the imbalance occurs, and it also affects your mindset. So, there is a resistance and you want to come back to the normalcy. When you are unable to come to the normalcy, that results in stress. So, as a comprehensive phenomena encompassing all the 3, it affects and results in stress. This is what exactly is stress about. Hans Selye is the first one who adapted this kind of a theory for stress to occur among the individuals. He felt that there is a 3-stage model when an organism is confronted with a threat. First stage is alarm reaction, second stage is stage of resistance, and the third is stage of exhaustion. What is an alarm reaction? When you react to certain stimulus, you are not expecting such a situation to occur before you, then you are under a shock phase. The initial reaction is a shock phase in which resistance is lowered, and a counter shock phase in which defense mechanism becomes active. So, how do you deal with it? When you are not expecting that situation and it happens, you want to control it, you want to get away from it, or you want to resolve it. So, you use defense mechanism to deal with that. That is the first stage of alarm reaction. This reaction is characterized by autonomous excitability. There is an adrenal discharge because you are excited in a positive manner, negative manner, and which is affecting you. It increases your heart rate, muscles are gone and blood content, and there is a gastrointestinal ulceration which is happening within your body because of that stimulus. So, you are shocked. Because you are shocked, all this results in physiological symptoms. The next stage is stage of resistance. Maximum adaptation occurs during this stage. The bodily signs characteristics of alarm reaction disappear. Resistance increases to levels above normal. If the stressor persists or the defensive reaction proves ineffective, the organism deteriorates to the next stage. You try to resist by resolving the issue or coming out with a solution, and or you are adapting a different process to deal with it, or you are using some intervention to deal with it. And when all this collapses and it does not improve your situation, then it leads to the next stage. The next stage is called as exhaustion stage. When the adaptation energy is exhausted, signs of alarm reaction reappear and resistance level begins to decline irreversibly and the organism collapses. So, you are shocked and initially then you try to deal with things in different forms, and when that does not involve in resolving the issue or coming out with a solution, then your energy gets exhausted, and then again the sign of alarm reaction reappear and the resistance, you are not able to resist further. Then it is affecting you personally and also physiologically. That is called as stage of exhaustion. Many of other researchers went through this theory of stress and they found out certain shortcomings of this particular theory. It is based on researches carried out on infrahuman subjects. In such experiments, the stresses are usually physical or environmental, whereas the human organism is not always confronted by such stresses. If certain things happen within an environment, like economical changes happen for the political reasons, that may not affect you in a large manner. But the certain aspects which affects you personally, that results in stress. So, Saley's work on stress depends on the existence of a non-specific physiological response. But it has been noted by researchers there are certain stimuli, for example, exercise, fasting, which do not produce non-specific response, and hence general adaptation syndrome does not hold true. So, these are the shortcomings of the theory by which researchers have concluded that it does not hold good for every aspect or for every individual. Thirdly, intrapsychic or social or interpersonal or interactional factors emerge as major stresses in human beings. These have not been given their due place in this approach. So, human aspects are not taken into consideration in this particular theory when you are dealing with stress, because the major stresses happen between the human beings. So, that was not taken into the consideration. Finally, the reactions of infrahuman subjects are more direct, perceptible and easily measurable. This is not true of human subjects, as their responses are always mediated through several layers of cultural and social factors. So, it depends on a person from what background the person has come up and how much stress or how much of shocks one could deal with. Even for a small pain, a person may think in a very big manner, but another individual with a small pain is able to manage that and come out with a solution. So, it varies from individual to individual, and this variation is not taken into this particular theory. Now, earlier we discussed about what is stress and how does stress take place, and the theory of Hal-Sale, what holds good about the theory. Now, we will discuss about organizational stress as such. Why does stress take place in an organization? What are the reasons for the stress to happen in an organization? The basic reason is when your personality or personal skills doesn't match with the expectations of the organization, that results in stress. Stress in organizations has been defined in terms of misfit between a person's skills and abilities and the demand of his or her job, and as a misfit in terms of a person's needs not being fulfilled by his job environment. Cooper and Marshall are of the view that by occupational stress is meant environmental factors or stresses such as work overload, role conflict, role ambiguity, poor working conditions. All these are associated with a particular job, the reasons being that which results in stress. Kaplan defined organizational stress in general and role stress in particular. From this particular point of view, an individual to role system, the role space, role set, they play an important role. What is role space? Each individual occupies certain place in an organization. The person has been assigned a particular role to be performing in an organization. So, it can be defined as the dynamic interrelationship both between the self and the various roles an individual occupies and among these roles. So, that is called as role space. What kind of role is assigned to you by the organization when they have different roles to be played by different individuals. Then the second aspect is role set. The individual's role in the organization is defined by the expectations of other significant roles. So, there is a linkage between your role and other roles and those of the individual of himself or herself. So, the role set is the pattern of relationship between the role being considered and other roles. So, there is a role which one is performing in the organization and that has linkage to other roles in which being performed by others in the organization. It has been identified that there are 10 types of organizational role stresses which takes place in the organization, and role plays a very important role. Role plays an important role in an organization. The kind of role which is being assigned to you, the job description being attached to it, and you know what exactly you have to perform in the organization. When the role is not clear, when the job description is not clear, you do not know what exactly you have to perform. When you do not know exactly what you have to perform, that results in role stress. So, it has been identified there are 10 types of organizational role stresses which takes place in an organization. Inter-role distance, role stagnation, role expectation conflict, role erosion, role overload, role isolation, personal inadequacy, self-role distance, role ambiguity and resource identification. Let us look at each of these role stresses. What is inter-role distance? Inter-role distance is, it is experienced when there is a conflict between organizational and non-organizational roles. The kind of role which is assigned to you by the organization and the kind of role you are performing in your family. So, these two, there is no linkage between these two roles. So, then there is a wide gap and you are unable to cope up with those roles, then it results in stress. The other type of role stress is role stagnation. Role stagnation takes place when this kind of stress occurs as a result of the gap between the demand to outgrow a previous role and to occupy a new role effectively. So, you are trying to do certain things in a routine manner, day after day and year after year, and you do not know what is the next change which is going to take place, and there are no changes which is happening in your role, and you are so bored with that. So, the stagnation occurs because there is no innovation, there is no creativity, and the total role which is given to you is fully autonomous or routinized. So, you are stagnated within that role. When there is no future for you, then it results in role stress. It is the feeling of being stuck in the same role. Such a type of stress results in perception that there is no opportunity for one's career progression. The other type we try to understand now is role expectation conflict. This type of stress is generated by different expectations by different significant persons about the same role. And the role occupants ambivalence as to whom to please, because you have a boss over you or a superior over you who expects that you have to perform or reach these targets given by him or her. But there is a superior boss or the head of the organization who expects more than the job description given to you by your own superior. You have to outperform that. So, there is an expectation for that performance. That also results in conflict. So, that is called as role expectation conflict. That also results in stress in the organization. The other type of role stress is role erosion. This kind of role stress is the function of the role occupant's feeling that some functions which should properly belong to his or her role are transferred to or performed by some other role. So, certain aspects of your job or certain aspects of your job description are taken away from you and given to other person. Then you try to lose on that. When the functions are performed by the role occupant, but the credit for them goes to someone else. You are performing whatever is given to you and you are carrying out it dutifully, but the credit is given to somebody else because certain aspects are taken away from you and given to the other person. Then that results in stress. That is called as role erosion. Another type of role stress is role overload, which results in stress. What is role overload? When the role occupant feels there are too many expectations from the significant roles in his or her role set, he or she experiences role overload. You are overloaded with so many things to carry out for the organization. It can be quantitative, it can be qualitative. When it is quantitative, you are not able to prioritize which to complete first, then that results in role overload, which results in stress. So, when you have too many things also, you do not know what to prioritize, that results in stress. And when things are being too difficult and the accountability in the role is too much, then that results in stress. This is what is called as role overload. What is role isolation? This type of role stress refers to the psychological distance between the occupant's role and others' role in the same role system. When there is no proper linkage between what you are performing and what others are performing for the organization, when there is no proper linkage, that results in role isolation stress. That leads to stress, which is called as role isolation because of role isolation. So, role isolation is characterized by the feelings that others do not reach out easily, indicative of the absence of strong linkages of one's role with others' roles. Then personal inadequacy. This type of stress arises when the role occupant feels that he or she does not have the necessary skills and training for effectively performing the function expected from that particular role. When your skills does not match with what organization expects out of you, that results in stress. You do not possess the skills which are required to carry out that. So, this is bound to happen when the organizations do not impart periodic training to enable the employees to cope with the fast changes both within and outside the organization. When the skills do not match with what you are supposed to perform, that results in inadequacy. So, inadequacy leads to stress. Then you have self-role distance. The other type of stress is self-role distance. When the role a person occupies goes against his or her self-concept, then there is a self-role distance that results in stress. The organization is asking you to perform certain tasks, complete certain tasks, but that does not match with your ability or the moral, the ethics, then that results in conflict. So, there is a mismatch between the person and her job that results in stress. The other type of role stress is role ambiguity. Role ambiguity is when there is no clarity what you have to perform. You do not know what exactly you have to perform in the organization. That results in stress. So, the lack of clarity of your role, lack of clarity about the expectations of the role, what kind of activities you have to do, the responsibilities you have, then it results in stress. So, when the role sender holds his expectations about the role, when he or she sends it and when the occupant receives those expectations, when there is no clarity among these three, that results in role ambiguity leading to stress. Resource inadequacy, when you do not have adequate resources to perform that role, that leads to stress. So, this type of stress is evident when the role occupant feels that he or she is not being provided with adequate resources for performing those functions. So, further Parekh developed a standardized and organizational role stress scale to measure the role stresses. So, whenever an organization wants to conduct certain research and find out what kind of stress is happening within the organization, they can use this scale and find out what kind of role stress is taking place within the organization. So, in this the researcher stresses on the three role stresses. One is role ambiguity, role overload and role conflict. By using this scale, you will be able to identify what kind of role stresses takes place, especially the role ambiguity, role overload and role conflict. So, this scale is certainly one of the best instruments available today for measuring a wide variety of role stresses. So, there are 6 major sources of stress at work. We talked about the role stresses which takes place in an organization and how to deal with it. So, the 6 major sources of stress at work are factors which are intrinsic to the job. What exactly a job is, what the factors relating to the job you have to perform, whether you have adequate skills, you have adequate resources and the technology to perform that particular job. So, these are one of the major sources of work. The kind of job description given to you to perform that particular role. When it is not clear, then that results in stress. And the relations at work, the relationships you have with your own superior, with your peers, with your subordinate, that also results in stress. When you do not have proper relationships, healthy relationship, amicable environment to carry out the work, that results in stress. Then you have problems in career development. You do not know what is the next opportunity you have to progress in your career, that results in stress. When the organization structure and climate are not conducive, that also leads to stress. Non-work factors like if your home is far away from the organization and the organization is not providing you the vehicle or certain amounts of monetary help for these, then it results in stress. So, we will stop here. Thank you.